Hello, my friends. Those of you who know who I am know that I have a nasty habit of throwing grenades at assumptions. This one's going to be a fun one. Oh, boy. You're not really ready for this, but I'm going to throw the grenade at you anyway. What if we don't need security after all? There. I said it. Now, before you run off to the church of security and go grab a priest to smack me upside the head with some secure holy water that you've checked all the permissions on, give me just a second to lay out my case. All the computers are gone. Well, I don't have one to hold in front of you this time, no props, but I'm a guy with computers, and let's say I'm holding a computer in my hand right now. I'm doing development work on it, or I'm editing images, or whatever. Do I need that computer to have file permission-based security? No. No, I don't. Now, the ultimate argument against this will be, but you're going to delete System 32. You need to be protected from yourself. If you do something stupid, you can nuke your own system. God, I wish I had an old system I could show you. But anyway, back in the day, like Windows 95, 98, Millennium, which we won't acknowledge actually existed, or even DOS, you could do this. You could delete everything. If you go to DOS and you type DELTREE, you could delete the entirety of your DOS folder. Then you have no commands, then you can't do anything, and you have to reinstall DOS. Same thing with Windows 95 or 98. At the same time, somehow we managed to do everything that we wanted to do with our computers. Despite that, there was no security. There is no file security in the FAT file system. There's, honestly, now that I think about it, there's almost no security, period. But that's the point. A lot of people have been clamoring behind the scenes, quietly in comment section, for a return to the single user system. Basically, they wish they could go back to the days of Windows 95 or the days of Amiga, where you had a computer, and that computer was not made for a bunch of different people to be able to all use it at the same time, and has all these accounts and all these permissions. You know, we're not running a 1970s mainframe. So do we really need for user A and user B to have these heavily isolated home directories where A can't touch B's stuff because we don't want A to steal B's thesis on this 50 user shared system? Look, okay, fine. I'll get a prop. Here's a prop. I have a computer. This is a computer. It's a pretty cool computer, actually. Oh, this was an accounting computer. Even better. So based on what this is, I know that this was used for QuickBooks. Now, QuickBooks has a multi-user mode, and the QuickBooks file was occasionally shared. There was a server the file was hosted on. This thing's getting kind of heavy. But this computer over here, it would run QuickBooks. Do they need all of this fine-grained, Windows ACLs or Unix user group world ownership permission stuff to host what is essentially a glorified spreadsheet somewhere and edit the values in it? No, they don't. If I use Samba, just as an example, okay? If I use Samba, I can restrict which users on the network can access the accounting folder. That's not a function of file system permissions. That's a function of Samba. And even then, how necessary is it if you never give them access to the share in the first place? So, the file system permissions, now here's kind of why I'm bringing this up. You don't know what security does to you. When I say that, this is all getting very specific on file system permissions, but in the Unix model, for example, you have user, group, and world, or other. And each one of those has read, write, execute, and there are a couple special ones. If you have home, user, text file, the kernel has to go on every attempt to open a file, every attempt to touch something. They have to go, okay, do they have permission to read home? That's usually for a directory, and execute bit, and it's checked against user, group, and other. Do any of those happen to give their specific user account permission to read the contents of /home? Yes, but see, this is the thing. They've already gone to the Dentry cache. They've already looked at the Dentry. They've already had to compare the Dentry, potentially 3 different bit masks. against your account UID, GID, blah, 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 for just this one item. Then they have to go find the next one. Okay, home. Okay, what about user? Do they have permission to read the contents of user? And since they maybe are opening a text file for writing, do they have permission to write to it? Well, okay, yeah, right. But now we've done 2 security checks. So that's at most 2 disk reads to get the Dentry cache entries, then comparing your user stuff against that. Then they have to check the permissions on the actual file. Now, notably, in the worst cases, all of these can trigger a full directory scan to find that directory to load its permission bits. In the worst case, if it's been flushed out of the VFS cache, it has to reload everything. In the best case, it's still sitting in the cache and they don't have to do the reload work. They just check the one thing, okay? But we've already done this fine-grained permission check on home, this fine-grained permission check on user, this fine-grained permission check on a text file. This is a simple case, but that's 3 permission checks just for a program that's going file open /home/user /list of reasons I fucking hate security.txt. Okay? Now, imagine instead of this 3-element thing, we have these nice long directory trees. For example, running find under home user, find type, or not type, but just name star.mp4. And that causes it to then span every directory within your entire home directory looking for video files that end in MP4. So for each one of those directories, it has to read the entire directory, but then it also has to perform permission checks. But here's where it gets brutal, okay? It doesn't check permissions. For example, say you've got images, and then you've got drawings, and then you've got videos. For every single thing that it touches, it has to do permission check, not just on images, or not just on drawings, but on home, user, images, drawings. So every single time it wants to open anything underneath that hierarchy, it starts back at the beginning. Check permission, check permission, check permission, check permission. And you better hope it's in the VFS cache so that those dentries can be checked. Otherwise, and you basically have this exponential. Like we're talking about not a curve like this, not a curve like this. We're talking about, woo boy. As soon as you get more complicated with what you're trying to do, suddenly you're burying your efficiency in all of the security theater. And it's just a laptop in front of me that I have a user account on. And do I even really need the user account? Let's be honest. It's one guy with one computer. I don't need the user account either. I don't need all that complexity. But for my home folder, where I'm doing all this stuff, you're doing all of these, like 3 or 4 fine-grained permission mask checks for every single thing in the hierarchy, and it's exponential. The deeper the level, the more checks get done from the start, over and over and over, blowing out level 1, level 2 caches all day, every day. It's absolute chaos under the hood. What if we threw it out? So that's the thing I've been thinking about lately, and I've been actually considering just doing it. All I'd have to do is go in the VFS and change the permission checks to don't bother. There's a lot of efficiency being left on the table by this obsession with security, and I don't think that it's all necessary. You can sandbox things. For example, browsers already do this. They already don't trust the existing security model. They've got process isolation. They've got sandboxing. They intentionally detach capabilities. There's just so many ways that modern software already distrusts the underlying OS security model and tacks on all these cages around things that are actually giant front doors for some hacker to get into. I don't need file management operations on my computer to be a bunch slower because my CPU is choking on constantly redoing the same work it literally just did because some AWS hyperscaler somewhere is absolutely paranoid about security. It's stupid. And I think that this rationale, some of you will simply be the type that go, oh no, but security's good. Security's always good. It's never not good. Well, okay, that's fine, Karen, but it's not good when you're checking permissions that I should already have on all of my stuff already on my single user machine that no one else is allowed to come into. Oh no, but what if you get broken into? You know what? If your computer's compromised, if this box right here, if this thing gets broken into, it doesn't matter. If you have a compromise, you have to assume anyway, under all modern security models, that the entire thing has been completely breached in ways you can't think of. You don't even need administrative rights for a whole lot of the breaches that I have seen come through my computer repair shop. So, just to be clear, we're already going to have to nuke the whole thing anyway. The attack surface is already huge, even if you're a so-called limited user. I mean, they've already got access to all your stuff. They just can't delete System32. And you don't need file security bits to protect System32. You could just have the operating system require a certain administrative level to be able to write or delete program or operating system files that are system-wide. User folders, why can't they be like Windows 95, where you just have a folder and a guy has another folder, and there's not stuff trying to lock everybody out of everybody else's folders? Why can't the policy be baked into the system in a way that doesn't require disk reads and cache loads and step-by-step, fine-grained mask checks? I don't need all that shit. I don't know about you people, but I'm about tired of Windows ACL and ownership bullshit on my single-user computers. I don't need it. I don't want it. I would love it if it would just go away, get out of my way, and let me do my job. And then, the more I think about it, the more I realize my computer's spending more time making sure that I'm allowed to touch my own stuff than just working with my own stuff. Now, I'm not saying this is for everybody. There are plenty of people, like Grandma probably should have a paranoid computer. But should I? No. No, I shouldn't. Screw security. I say we make an unsafe derivative of Linux that is single-user focused, that moves the security out of the fine-grained permission thing that chokes everything. And instead, we trust that if you're a giant web browser and you know you're a wide open door for people to break in and goof off, maybe you'll lock it down in a sandbox. But if I'm just running a local, non-network capable file tool, none of that's necessary. Get out of my way. Just a thought. Let me know what you think in the comments.